I'm going to be talking about the uglier side of the resident personality that can come out. How many of us here feel like they've been manipulated by someone? Okay, a lot of us. And didn't feel real good, did it? Yeah, brought on feelings of anger, resentment. Um, the, I am here to tell you that most likely it's going to happen. You're not going to expect it, so I'm here to tell you to expect it. Now that I don't want you to deter you at all from what you're headed into doing because it is amazing work. But I'm just here to kind of prepare you and to kind of talk to you about what that's going to look like. And I'm going to refer to my notes here. I don't have a PowerPoint up there, but you have the notes in your handout. Manipulation is the ultimate way to serve one's own purpose. Clearly, we're here to serve God's purpose, but we're all capable of manipulation. We all are. Children especially. We've all, any of us that have had children or dealt with children understand that. But never, ever believe that you can't be manipulated by these gals. And it may seem very counterintuitive. They're there to be helped, to learn things, but honestly, a lot of it is just where they've come from, their culture that they've come from. And when I say culture, I mean criminal culture. So, essentially we're in a war, and most of us here today are not used to those tools of war that are going to be used against us. So just number one thing you need to leave here today from my point is to expect to be manipulated, but don't take it personal. It is really not against you at all. It is simply part of the way those with criminal and addictive thinking act. So Dale alluded, a lot of my presentation dovetails many things that Dale has gone over, and we didn't do our presentations together at all. So this really is talking from experience. And victims of manipulation are selected by their personality traits. And as Dale said, those with the most education are the most likely to be manipulated. I will never forget that. I know I can be to this day, even with 22 years of experience working with offenders. I know it could happen because my heart, I expect the best from people. I expect people to be honest. That's how I operate. We expect people to operate like we operate. But you have to remember the gals there at the home are there for a reason. They're there because they made a lot of poor choices, and a lot of those choices involve manipulating others. So in your handout, as it says, education, experience, vocation, gender, ethnicity, nor intellect will protect you from being manipulated. To the manipulator, those are just weaknesses that they're going to use to select you. They're going to make a lot of judgments about who we are as Christians, because a lot of them are going to think, oh, Christian people want to help me. What can I get from them? Because most likely I can get a lot of things from them because they're Christians and they want to help. That's really how a lot of folks view us. And one of my favorite sayings, and I've put it here in this PowerPoint, that I always used to say is, do not mistake my kindness for weakness. I have a servant's heart. I love to help people. It makes me feel so good to be kind to people. And when Dale talks about what your motives are, when you walk in, you want to help people. You want to be kind to people. But remember that can be turned on you very quickly. All right, flip over to the next page. What can manipulation look like? It can look like things other than what's on this list, but this is just some of the common ones that I wanted to go over with you. Flattery. Now, in our world, and I mean the non-criminal justice world of folks that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, most likely, giving someone a compliment is normal. It's huge. It's, just part of how we operate. Now, don't get me wrong. The residents are going to need, compliments, part of it, but they need to be genuine. But when they start getting turned towards you, when they're giving you a lot of compliments over if it just starts to feel extraordinary amount of compliments, most likely they're trying to make you feel a certain way. They're trying to manipulate you into thinking a certain thing about them. They're trying to make you think that they're more like you and that, oh, this person really likes me, because we want to be liked. We absolutely want the residents to like us. That's our nature. So it's just something to think about. And as we're talking about all of these things, one of the things that I want you to think about is your gut. The thing that has served me best, and I'm sure Dale will attest to this as well, and it took me a few years to learn this. I was young when I entered the criminal justice system. Trust your gut. If you start feeling like, this is, trust it, don't let it go. You want to let it go because you don't want to think badly about the residents. You're going to want to dismiss it. And I'm not saying make a huge deal about it, but I'm saying take note of it. The next thing, empathy. Shared experiences, beliefs, attitudes, and thoughts. One of the ways that the residents may manipulate you, and this is kind of the opposite of what Dale talked about, is, we want to find those shared experiences so we can, find things in common. Well, that also can be turned around and used against you. One of the things that you might think about is, let me give you an example. If you find out that you both have children in common, and and so then you talk about your children, and then one of the things they might say is, you know what, my child is in this home right now, and it's a really bad situation, and they really need this, or they really need this. You as a mom or a dad are going to start thinking, oh gosh, I could provide that. I really want to help. It's not your role. So it's just something to think about how things can start to get turned. And again, think about what your role is as a volunteer. Sympathy, again, very, very similar. Demonstrate feelings of compassion and pity toward you. So these are all things we should be feeling, but just when it starts getting all the way over here, and you're starting to feel like, oh, this resident is trying to make me feel better, that's when you have to start to go, okay, what's this about? Have I shared too much? Because you need to share so that you can build that trust and get to know one another. But oftentimes the information you share can be turned and used against you that way. Helplessness. This is a common one that I saw over the years used by residents, and I need you. I can't do this. I need you. If you hear the words, I need you, that should be the big red flag waving at you, because they don't need us. And we have to know that. We want to be needed. It's human nature to feel like we want to be needed. And so, but if you're hearing it, and it goes very closely with, I'm going to jump down a little bit, confidentiality and isolation. If you hear, you're the only one that understands me, you're the only one that I can talk to, can I talk to you alone? Huge red flags, huge red flags. Because those are ways a resident is trying to get you alone, trying to get you to be the one that can save them from this life path that they're headed on. We would love to be the savior to people. So many people enter the field of criminal justice to work in it to save other people, to help people because they think they have the answers, just like Dale talked about. And that's just simply not your role, but it's one that can quickly be turned on you. So those are kind of things I want you to think about. I'm going to back up a little bit to sensitivity. As females, we tend to be very emotional. Residents are going to be very emotional because they've got a lot of issues going on in their lives. Some of them may be dealing with loss of children, loss of family, loss of their drug of choice. All those things are affecting their body, their brain, and there will be natural, genuine emotional responses. But the thing is, what you have to start to realize is that you are not responsible for those emotional responses. So if you are starting to feel like, the things they're saying, and oh, how can I make this person feel better? I need to do something to help them feel better. That's when you need to start, just take a step back and go, okay, I'm not responsible here. I'm not the one who's responsible for their emotions. But they're going to try to make you feel like you are the one that's responsible for making them feel better. And it's simply not the case at all. Touching, sexual references, coercion, and intimidation. Those all kind of go together. One thing Dale mentioned is that a lot of the women that are going to come into the home have been sexually abused. Very, 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 very common for women that are in the criminal justice system. A lot, and of course, we're going to have empathy for that. Dale talked about, them sharing things and that they may not share things right away with you. The resident that shares things with you immediately, those deep, dark, ugly things, that's a big red flag. If they're willing to trust you immediately, it's not really trust. They're just trying to push boundaries, see how it makes you feel, how you react, what possibly they can get from you when you're starting to feel, sad for them. So just things to think about. Touching, sexual references, you will possibly, the residents may, go into areas of sexual reference that make you feel very, very uncomfortable. It's important that you respectfully at that point stop them and say, you know what, this is really not an area that I feel comfortable with. I really don't want to discuss that with you. Refer them maybe to trained counselors or, that type of area. But one of the things they're trying to do is see what kind of response they get from you. How much can I push? How much can I tell you? And it's not tell you to help to get to know you better, it's tell you to make you uncomfortable, and therefore, if you're feeling uncomfortable, it's quite possible you might do something that you wouldn't normally do. So it's all part of that dysfunctional process of, you do this, then I'll do that. Great, just a very simple example, but I remember at KPAP one time, one of our newer substance abuse therapists was in a one-on-one group, and the resident came in for his session, and he offered her a piece of gum, and she accepted it. By the end of that session, he reported it immediately that she had accepted a gift, and it was that quickly, he knew that she couldn't accept that gift, and she did, and he was prepared to use it against her. So it's things that seem so benign to you and me that really are not. And I don't want to scare you against, oh my gosh, these are going to be scary people. Oh, these gals in the home are lovable. So lovable. They're your daughters. They're your sisters. They're so many things. They have so many good things to offer. But where they've come from, most of them are survivors. And manipulation is simply one way to continue surviving. It's a way of thinking that you and I do not have. And so really what you just need to start to think about is that's definitely one of the differences between those that deal with addiction and are involved in the criminal justice system. It's actual criminal and addictive thinking, very different from what you and I think like. So just something to think about. Manipulation, why is it used? To get what they or we want. That's why people do it. And again, it's a normal way of operating for these gals. And what we're doing at the Wings of God, we're planting seeds of a different way of life. And so we cannot expect all of a sudden thinking to go 360 and that they're going to be totally turned, and it's just not going to happen. And so it's a learning process, just like any of us that have tried to change our behaviors, whether it's losing weight, quitting smoking, it is a process. And one of the things that I will tell you that I experienced early on in my career was I would be extremely disappointed when someone I thought was doing so well and they choose to leave. Or they choose to, when they're out looking for a job, go smoke dope instead of doing what they're supposed to do. I personally was taking that as just, oh my gosh, look at all the work I did trying to help you. So that's some of the errors in thinking that we have as volunteers or those working with this population is this is not about us. It is absolutely not about us. It is their journey, and we just need to be used as Christ would have us be used in their journey and be a blessing to them. But there are ways that you can protect yourself and things you need to think about, and how you want to approach the residents and how you can kind of protect yourself a bit. And again, none of us are immune from being manipulated, that's for certain. But the first thing you need to do is know the rules of the house. Dale's going to talk further about some of the rules, but Cheryl is the one, she's the house manager. And it's important that if you have a question about the rules of the house, ask her. Ask Karina. You've got to know what they are, because that's one of the number one ways that the residents will use to manipulate you. They know the rules of the house. They live there, but they know you don't necessarily know all the rules of the house. So for an example I'm going to give you that I've given in past trainings and people really didn't get it, so I knew it was a good example, is you may be meeting one-on-one with your resident, and she talks about, oh, I'm so hungry, and you, of course, are going to say, well, why are you so hungry? And she might say, well, you know what, Cheryl wouldn't let me have dinner last night. And of course you are going to think, what? That is unacceptable, because you want to believe her. Why would somebody lie about not being able to have dinner? Well, if you just listen to what that resident says and don't check with Cheryl, but really just don't take any side, just kind of listen and just say, oh my gosh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure you can work it out with Cheryl. Because one of the things they're trying to do is make it your problem, not their problem. And then the other thing they're trying to do is cause chaos. Because one of the things that the residents are so used to living in is chaos. And if they're in a home that suddenly has rules and structure and expectations, things are going to go pretty orderly. There's not that chaos that they are comfortable with, that they are used to living in. And so that's just one of the reasons that type of thing will be started. But it'll also be a way of starting a wedge between you and the staff of Wings of God. And maybe, perhaps, then one of the things they might want is you're thinking, oh my gosh, this person doesn't have any food. Well, you know what? I think I might come back and drop off something special for her. It's just absolutely, it sounds crazy, but it could be a very, very real scenario. And then if you're the mentor who is dropping off food and then the other residents, their mentors aren't dropping off food, it just becomes really chaotic and ugly. So just something to think about. Maintaining your boundaries, both physical and emotional, really, really important. Of course, you're going to want to give the residents hugs, and, it's a natural thing. But when it just becomes too much, just make sure you're very respectful of where they're coming from. We talked about most of these women having been sexually abused in their past. Touching is not always a very comfortable thing for folks, so make sure it's something that you ask. If you want to give a hug, or vice versa, they should ask you, because that may not be comfortable for you as well. And number one, we're here to help the residents help themselves. Number one reason for manipulation is to get you to do something that they really should be doing themselves. So it's important to always realize that a lot of your job is to redirect, and again, to help them go back to helping themselves, because we want them to be independent, not dependent on us. And Dale has talked about this. Check yourself every day before you come to mentor. Check yourself when you're coming through the doors. And I used to tell my staff this all the time because we have our own baggage and our own issues that we are dealing with. And, you know, if you maybe have just had a fight with your child or your spouse before you've come in that day, your emotions are going to be high too. You're not necessarily going to be the best at your best that day when you come in. When you're not your best, you're more easily manipulated. So it's just something to think about. Okay, where am I? Pray before you walk through those doors and just think about where am I? Where am I today? What is my purpose right now? I need to let it go and I need to focus on why I'm here, because we really sometimes don't realize how not prepared we are to deal with what's going to come at us when we walk through those doors at Wings of God. Our gals have a lot of issues. I think that you will be prepared for them if you pray about it, but it's certainly an area that most of us are not used to dealing with, those type of emotions and those needs that they're going to have. So.